that within study abroad, we talk about there being 5 Fs. And the 5 Fs are kind of like 5 factors that sometimes stop someone from studying abroad. So they're friends, family, fears, funds, and fit. So we want to know if you faced any of these obstacles yourself before you left. And if you did, kind of what was the obstacle for you? And Lyric, you can start.
I'd say maybe one of the main obstacles I faced was funds, definitely, because I didn't really plan ahead of time for my study abroad. It was kind of a spur of the moment decision. So I didn't really have like savings or anything like that. And I personally took out like a loan to cover my study abroad costs. It wasn't like too bad in terms of being out there because like I'm from the city, so it's already expensive anyways. But just taking into consideration like the currency difference, like 15 pounds is not equivalent to $15. It's a little bit more. So just keeping that in mind. And like a lot of people in the program that I went to, they they like plan hardcore for their study abroad programs and they go to a different country in Europe every weekend. And like if you don't plan ahead of time, you probably won't be able to do as many other European countries and stuff. So definitely funds, just make sure you save your money and kind of prepare. Don't just go in blind.
I think a lot of students would say the same thing. But I like that you brought up the point of all of that weekend travel, especially in Europe. But I think it's also important, like you said, to focus on being in the city that you're in too. There's so much to do in London. Just like you said, you're from the city. I'm sure there's thousands of things you haven't done yet in the city being from there. So that's a really good point that even if you aren't going on a weekend trip every weekend, it's still valuable and it's still a good investment. Quinn, what about you?
Before I went abroad, my main obstacle were probably funds, family, and fears. So since both my parents and I knew that I wanted to study abroad for an entire semester later in my college career, I had to convince them that this quarter class was worth the money, and fortunately I won. And part of my Christmas present, or the bulk of my Christmas present, was money towards the cost. And then I also had some saved up from work over the summer. So fortunately, I was able to make it possible kind of last minute. Um, and I also, the fears part was that I didn't really know a lot of people that were enrolled in the class. And I'm definitely an introvert. So that was kind of difficult for me, but everyone was super nice and I made friends pretty quickly. So it worked out.
Good. I love your solutions. I think those are two solutions we talk about a lot too, like asking instead of for physical gifts, which oftentimes we don't even really like or end up returning, like ask your friends and family to invest in something that is important for your education, your career. Like that's a really good solution.
Definitely. And it
Um,
made it more meaningful too.
yeah, that's true. And probably made those people more invested in like, hey, show me those pictures and tell me about your trip.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
Alasis, what about you?
What scared me the most was like kind of like social fears because I'm not the biggest extrovert, but like for example, my roommates wanted to go out every weekend and I was kind of scared of like the difference in like societal pressure over there in the sense that like there are different standards of beauty in the US versus in the UK. So that scared me a lot when I was going outside, especially in the summertime when I would wear what I wore and people many times gave me looks for it, like not only it being like American fashion, but it just like I felt like I didn't belong a lot of the time, even though I liked the place itself. But overall, it was still a great experience, and I wouldn't have traded it in for anything. But it was just a lot of social pressure for me in those 6 weeks.
You definitely have to adapt to a whole new, like you said, like version of society, and 6 weeks is like really quick to do it. So I applaud you for doing so and not letting it hinder your experience, like you said, like still having a really good time. Okay, Raphael.
Speaking, just expanding on what Alyssa said, um, your identity in a foreign country is a really important factor when you travel abroad. Um, you're not gonna just get there and feel like you're one of the people. you have to recognize that you're not from there and handle yourself as such. But in the long run, it's just a really enriching experience. You know, like it's so invaluable. You can't get it anywhere else. You can't get it by staying where you are. And I think you can't really put a price tag on that. And that's just something everyone has to experience for themselves and determine if they like or not. In terms of finances, I did plan extensively, and my parents help a lot also financially, but also being able to, you know, plan ahead and tell yourself, I'm going to raise this much by this deadline and, you know, make this happen for myself. So I think the determination, planning ahead, and just being motivated enough to get everything in place before deadlines reach and stuff like that. In terms of friends and family, I mean, tech has made everything so much easier. I feel like, I mean, you know, I don't think you really have to worry about that. I FaceTime my mom every night before I went to bed. So that, yeah. So yeah, I think that's all I have. Thanks.